All right, let's call this meeting to order. I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
You have a motion.
Thank you, Neil and Roger. Wendy, would you do the honors?
Yes. Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye. And Dr. Silvers, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I sure will. Everybody please stand. Your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty.
and justice for all.
All right, thank you. All right. Wendy, do we have anyone from the public?
I have 2 public comments this evening. I have one to read into the record, and I have a person who would like to share a public comment himself.
Go ahead, please.
The first one is from Olivia Castillo. I do not want my child to return to school during this pandemic. It is still unsafe for our children to return to school. The second comment is from Robert Nitzos. And if we could bring him into the meeting, please.
Robert, you're muted. If you could unmute and go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Silvers, and others who are present. My name is Robert Nitzos, and I'm the parent of a 7th grader at Dana Middle School and an 11th grader at Davinci Science. I wanted to provide a comment about your recent return to in-person learning survey. I think you're missing an answer to question 3 regarding your plans to have our children attend in-person classes. The only options are yes and no. My answer is I don't know, especially since you did not indicate when the students might have the option to come back, nor what that will look like. Since that was not an option on the survey, I have to select no at this time. If by some miracle you were to reopen on Monday, my answer would certainly be no. Cases of COVID continue to trend upwards, and most credible sources are indicating that this is only going to continue as we get deeper into the winter months. Just today, California became the 2nd state to surpass 1 million COVID-19 infections since the start of this pandemic. I have a hard time understanding why anyone would want to bring groups of people together, indoors, under these circumstances. And while my primary concern is for the safety and well-being of my own child, I also have concerns about the impact to the community at large if schools reopen. While it has been reported that children are less susceptible to the virus, they can easily become carriers and pass it on to others, both those within our Wiseburn schools and those in our communities. I know that you're trying to get a count of the approximate number of students who might be showing up for in-person learning if you decide to reopen schools, a very important metric for your planning to be sure. But without specific details about planned dates to reopen, I don't think you'll be able to get a realistic number. I also know that you're trying to do what is best for our children. No one wants to continue in our current virtual model, as in-person instruction is much more effective. But I don't believe that rushing back into the classroom is the solution right now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate your comments. All right. We have a special presentation, the WEF Spotlight. Ann Tittle.
Thank you very much. We're not going to take up too much of people's time, but I'm going to thank a few people and then turn things over to Shavonda. I want to thank the school board and the district leadership for your tireless work for the betterment of our schools and our community. I want to thank the 137 families who have contributed to WEF's annual campaign so far. We've had a great response, and we're really thrilled to see everybody who can step up for our kids doing so. I want to thank the just under 300 registrants for our virtual turkey trot, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. And I also want to thank our sponsors, Chevron, Janice Rotella with Century 21, C&D South Bay Realty Team or Palm Realty Boutique, the Holly Dana Real Estate Group, Julie DeCoste Real Estate, Team Tammy Real Estate, Robex, Common Space Brewery, Radish, Big Five Sporting Goods, the Hoffman Murphy Real Estate Team, and Gimlin Orthodontics. And I'd like to turn things over to one of our longest serving board members, who we're so appreciative of having her come back year after year to bless us with all of her talents and her effort, Shavonda Christmas, our Director of Communications. Thank you, Shavonda.
So yes, thank you for having us to present tonight. I just want to quickly update you on what we are doing and where we're headed this year, even starting really into the spring of last year. So Wiseburn Education Foundation exists to enhance student education, provide supplemental funding, and unify the schools and community of the Wiseburn Unified School District. Our structure this year is a little different. We're primarily operating as a volunteer board of directors, but we have maintained our 501c3 status, of course. In terms of goals, we have actually 9, but I've kind of summarized them here. The first 2, well, actually our first is revolving around having a fee-based enrichment program to enhance STEAM programming. And then implementing 2-pronged program that enhances teacher grants, as you all have seen, I think, over the last 5 years or so, and to scale our STEAM programming across the schools. We would love to have the next 2 kind of meld in together, and that's having collaborative funding options and mutually desired outcomes with Davinci, as well as collaborating with Wiseburn School District to develop priorities for our programming. We continue to support and advocate for music and visual art programming across K-12. So we would like it to articulate starting at really the Teddy Kinder program all the way through 12th grade. And then to strengthen WEF's governance structure and processes in order to increase community engagement and leadership development. Lastly, but not least, very important, just making sure that we have a balanced contribution portfolio from schools and community families, foundations, as well as business partners and sponsors. So in 2021, we had wonderful plans, and as most organizations and entities, they were cut short a little bit, but we were just trudging through that and really feeling for all of the families who were affected. And we're able to put together some COVID-19 programs in response. So although we were not able to do our magical RAB Rock Around the Block event in person, we still were able to do the auction portion of it, and all of our great donations were online, and we raised $20,000. That pales in comparison, but nevertheless, we still did that. We had some WEF Wednesdays, which were great virtual community activities. Some of you may have joined with your own kids or just participated in some of our adult activities. There were 45 Educator mini grants that were given out in May of 2020, $100 per, just to fill those voids of things that folks didn't know they needed, all of the teachers and folks who were trying to just get headphones or something really cool for their virtual learning programs. And then, of course, the instrument cleaning and sanitation, which proved to be very valuable this summer as we were returning in the fall with kids who would have brand or well-cleaned instruments. WEF programs and support for 2021 continuing. So this fall, we've done some STEAM contributions in partnership with the district. our Educator of the Year mini grants, which complemented the program that you all put together to appreciate every single one of our hardworking teachers who have gone to bat for all of our kids just to pull together virtual learning. And over the summer doing trainings, we really did appreciate them and wanted to complement that with those mini grants. K-5 student TOSA, Joanne, just forgot her last name, Michaels. So she has been awesome. We did the 2020 Day of Science just last Friday with the balloon launch and some programs for families to do in the afternoon. Great programming. She's been right there with us, and it's a partnership between us. What could be better? K-2 music program enhancement, PS Arts, Visual Arts and Family Art Night. And I threw in that dance because I heard that you all were dancing the night away with your kids with their family art nights. And then there's multi-year contributions that continue, like Keyboarding Without Tears and the Stride Track program, which families love. And I think that will be an ongoing thing for many years to come. We also focused a little on our community, racial equity, and civic engagement. We did the board candidate forum earlier, I think October, end of October, and the statement of solidarity against systemic racism. And we continue to plan for programs in that arena. For Independence Day, we also threw in family heritage and celebration packet that families were able to look through and see their own culture reflected. Common space, virtual adult social, a little fun for those of you who like to have a little something extra. And WEF communications continue with e-news, social media, and the input into the district newsletter. So upcoming, we still have a few more things to get done. There's teacher innovation grants, Turkey Trot, which is woohoo, coming up during the break, during our Thanksgiving break for the virtual fun run. Our virtual Rock Around the Block event, we have started planning that. There's actually 1,000 different ideas. So we'll see how that ends up and what we'll be able to bring this community together even virtually. And then our Tom and Terry Johnstone scholarships that go to Wiseburn Davinci High School students. So this is our board. I won't read all the names. As you can see, we got a shot with both Blake Silvers and Eileen Harbeck. So our board has grown and we're very happy with those who have come, but we're just all here to support Wiseburn, and that's what we do. All of these pictures come from events that we've sponsored or somehow contributed to, and we're very proud of the things that happen because of the funding you all give and we all give so that our students can have a higher level quality of education. So if you're interested in making more of a contribution to WEF, this is how you can do it. We're on social media, definitely follow us, send out some things to others, and then forward those, tag folks, all of that great social media stuff that I don't really speak well. And then donate to our annual campaign. If you zoom in on that tag, you'll see how to donate through our website, and also volunteering. And you can join our board. Info at wiseburnedfoundation.org will get you there and more information about us and how you can be part. Definitely, when we have events, come out, support, and we really appreciate that. And lastly, thank you. Thank you again for having us here tonight.
Shavonda and Ann, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Also thank the rest of the board and the rest of the members. It's always been a great program. Rock Around the Block is one of my favorite events, and let's hope we get back to live Rock Around the Block someday soon. Again, thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
I have a comment as well, Israel.
Sure, go ahead, Roger.
Ann and Shavonda, I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. WEF is such a beautiful and integral part of our community. And please thank all of the directors for volunteering their time to support our community. And I know the grants mean a lot to all of our teachers in our classrooms. We can never underestimate the value or overestimate the value in some cases, right? But of all the things that you do, thank you so much. You're really in your debt, because WEF really brings our community together as well with all the different events. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Israel, I'd also like to just say a quick word as well. Shavonda and Ann, and to your entire Ed Foundation team, thank you for the work you're doing, your leadership, your dedication, and most importantly, the time that you spend, towards the foundation and towards the programs that support our kids here at Wiseburn. So thank you to both of you and your entire team.
I also want to thank you guys, especially for the candidate forum this past election time. As a candidate, it was a really welcome opportunity to have some exposure to the community and to have the community be able to ask questions. And I think it really contributed to some of the voter turnout and some of the great participation that our community had with the election process this year. It was a lot of work for you guys. I know that. And I believe Neil was looking at how many views there were, and maybe Neil can contribute that number, but I think there were over 900 views for the candidate forum after the fact on YouTube. So just for that one event, I think it was so important for our community's participation in the election process. And I think students watched it and families, and I just really appreciate that very much, and especially all the other work that you do and your board. So thank you.
And I'll throw in one last word to echo everything everybody said. I think it should be said and noted, and I think Ann and Shavonda, you both alluded to it, but people should know that you are all volunteers, and this is the first year you have not had an executive director, and yet you haven't missed a beat. It's truly impressive what you're doing. The engagement and talent of your board is inspiring. I got to see it again last night at one of your meetings. So thank you for what you guys are doing, and keep the faith. We are totally in support of everything you do. Thank you so much.
All right, bravo. All right, moving on. You guys can escape, but don't worry. All right, from the board, Roger.
Yes, just a couple of things. First, I'd like to congratulate Joanne and Neil on winning their re-election. It is an absolute pleasure serving with you together on the board here at Wiseburn. So congratulations. Looking forward to more time with you here on the board. Congratulations there. Also, I'm looking forward to the presentation a little bit later today. I think I'll hold my questions for Dr. Blake Silvers as he has a presentation for the TK2 waiver update. I'm really looking forward to hearing the update and asking a few questions and sharing some thoughts as well, as I've been attending several workshops and seminars and updates from different organizations, just in terms of the pandemic and what other school districts are doing as well. But obviously really focused here on Wiseburn and what our options are and some of the next steps forward. So I'm going to hold off on my questions until during the presentation with Dr. Silvers, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banuelos. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Israel. I also wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate Neil and Joanne on their re-election, and I certainly look forward to working with you on the education issues for the next few years. So congratulations to the both of you again. I also just wanted to give a quick update. We did have a meeting with the Sports Recreation Committee, which included Wiseburn Little League, Aviation Little League, and also AYSO. And basically it revolved really around the usage of fields. We're not quite ready to start yet, but we're looking at possibly, we're limited in recreational facility usage, and we're looking at possibly looking at some of our fields for usage, and maybe also upgrading some of our fields. So good meeting overall, very collaborative. At the end of the day, we're trying to see how we can continue the sports programs here because even our high school programs right now are having to use fields outside of our area. So it was a good meeting, and definitely some good ideas came up from the meeting that we'll be looking at. And then I just wanted to take an opportunity to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. That's all for me, Israel. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Ms. Kaneda?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the good wishes from everyone this evening. Appreciate that. And I just want to take a minute to thank the Wiseburn community. I'm very humbled to be reelected to the school board. I'm very excited to serve another term and really offer a strong commitment from me personally to work with the board, to work with the community, to work with staff, to all work through all the issues that we're dealing with now and all the budget issues, the coming back to school issues, the decisions that have to be made, and really appreciate the community's trust to go forward and work together to keep Wiseburn strong, because we are a strong district and we will remain that way, and it'll keep strong by the contributions of everyone who's on this meeting this evening and those of our community who can't necessarily join our meetings, but who care so very much about our schools and our students and our community. So thank you very much. I want to congratulate Neil as well. And I want to also say that we had I thought a really great campaign with Ms. Doherty also participating. I think the focus of the campaign entirely was on kids and community. It was very upbeat. It was very well focused on our community and on our kids. And I thought, I just wanted to compliment all the candidates for raising issues and talking about issues and supporting our kids and community. So thank you very much. That's all I want to say this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Kaneda. Dr. Goldman, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Mora. Joanne, thank you for your kind thoughts. Thank you for everybody on the board. Thank you to the community. It is an honor to continue serving on the board. I am additionally humbled and excited. And I do want to also compliment both Joanne and Jessica for the way they ran the campaign. It was very professional, very focused on the kids, and very, no one went negative. It was, someone commented to us that it was a model for the presidential election, and it wouldn't have been nice if that were carried throughout. So thank you. Jessica, please do remain involved. You're a very big asset to our district, and we want your feedback throughout. A couple additional comments. Thank you to WEF for their good work. I just wanted to comment again to our amazingly generous neighbor Chevron for their $25,000 donation for PLTW that we're recognizing in this board meeting. Thank you. Thrilled to see on our agenda tonight social emotional learning and our commitment there, some efforts to continue in that effort at the middle school. Great to see that happening. Obviously, we want to have that in TK through 5, and I appreciate how challenging that is, and appreciate that staying at the forefront of our minds, because it is about kids, and that's perhaps the biggest challenge we have in distance learning. Obviously, opening schools is on everybody's mind. We're going to have more from Dr. Silvers on that tonight. So as to Roger said, I'll hold those comments as well. I do know that we have so many parents, arguably the majority of parents, who want to come back at the TK through 2 level, and so many parents who are so concerned appropriately, as Mr. Nitsos so eloquently shared. This is a very difficult decision. I believe it's important we do, in fact, make the waiver application so we have the option, keeping in mind these are not easy choices. And to the comment that was made by the parent who was concerned about not wanting to bring her child back, I want to assure all of our community that it is the commitment of the board and the district overall that we will continue to offer distance learning. Even if the schools reopen, you will not be required to bring your child back. I think that's important to be shared. So again, it's a privilege to still be here. I have so much respect for everybody here tonight and in our community. And thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I'd also like to congratulate you, Neil and Joanne, for your re-election. And yes, a very wonderfully positive campaign. It was fun to watch, fun to listen. And again, I think it just shines on our district well of how positive that energy was. So I appreciate both of you keeping that so positive. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and remind everybody to be safe while you celebrate Thanksgiving. Don't forget about your social distancing and your safety with your relatives. Things don't change because you know them, so please be careful. And I also wanted to repeat what Neil just said to all our parents. Returning to school will be a parental choice. You don't have to worry about it being mandated in any way, shape, or form. You will choose if your child is coming back to school or not. Okay, that's all I have for today. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to move on from the Chief Business Official, David Wilson.
Mr. Mora, let me pull up my screen here. So for tonight's presentation, I just wanted to provide the board a review of our COVID-19 awards that we've been given, as well as our expenses. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of COVID-19 awards and projected expenses, specifically a summary of one-time COVID funds awarded, a summary of the allowable expenses, a summary of the expenses through October 31st, 2020, and lastly, our projected future COVID-19 related expenses. And so the district has received 5 different, let's call it buckets of funds, COVID funds, and they're just down here, they're summarized by column. So I'll go start with this first column. Now the first bucket is the Elementary and Secondary School Relief Fund / U.S. Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, acronyms ESSER / CARES. And the district has received just over $240,000 where we have to expend these particular funds by September 30th, 2022. So far, we've only spent about $2,800. And then the projected balance from January 1st moving forward is about $205,000. The second award we received is the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, or GEAR, just over $146,000. Again, the same deadline to expend these funds is September 30th, 2022. We've only spent just over $1,500, almost $1,600. The projected January 1 balance is about $144,000. The third bucket is the largest bucket we were awarded, and it's a Coronavirus Relief Fund, or CRF, and we received $1,124,213. And really want to point out the deadline to expend these funds is quickly approaching, December 30th, 2020. So far, through October 31st, we spent just over $762,000. And obviously, as of January 1st, our projected balance will be $0 because these funds will go away if not spent by December 30th. The next bucket of funds was actually received last year, 1920, and this was from the state. It was California Senate Bill 117, received just over $42,000. There was no expiration for these. Because it was the first dollars that we got in response to COVID, we spent all of it already last year, mostly on PPE, personal protective equipment. And then finally, the last bucket of funds is the State Prop 98 funds, Coronavirus Relief Funds. District's been awarded just over $185,000. The deadline to expend those funds is at the end of this fiscal year, so June 30th, 2021. So far, I've spent $0 out of this bucket. And as of January 1st, I project that we'll have a balance available to us about $185,000.
Dave, before you move on, can I ask a question? Can you go back to the previous slide? The middle column there, the Coronavirus Relief Fund, that has to be spent through by the end of this December. Does that mean it has to be committed? Like you have to have sort of ordered equipment or whatever sort of monies will be spent? You don't actually have to have paid the invoice by the end of December, or what does that mean?
So the technical term you're talking about is encumbered. So if you haven't spent it, but you've dedicated it or encumbered it, no, actually the state, the federal government is saying, we want you to actually expend these funds, spend the cash by December 30th. So even though we say, oh, we know like February or March, we're going to have this large expenditure, that's not acceptable. They want you to actually spend the funds before December 30th.
So we still have, looking at these numbers, around $400,000, somewhere around $400,000 yet to be spent.
That is correct.
in the next
yes.
2 months or less than 2 months at this point. So do we know what we're doing with that?
We do. So, there was a lot of advocacy going on at Sacramento, the federal level, that they would hopefully extend this deadline. Unfortunately, they did not. And so, other districts are figuring out ways that they can spend this money. And so talking with my counterparts, the other CBOs and other districts, what a lot of people or a lot of other districts are going to do is code or reclassify existing expenditures that they have to these COVID funds. So we might have, already existing expenditures, say they're counselors or specific teachers or other employees that we currently have on our payroll, and classifying those existing expenses to these COVID funds. So what that in effect will do is it will use up these restricted funds first, so they don't get taken away, and it will free up our unrestricted funds that was earmarked or has been paid for out of these salaries benefits.
I know we had some large software expenses for the distance learning tools that we're using. Was any of that able to come out of this amount?
Yes, absolutely. A majority of that was as well, that $760,000. A lot of that was already, the online curriculum that we've purchased, Chromebooks that we've purchased, smart boards that we've purchased. And so, we're doing everything that we can to code, to classify expenses to this account, so that the funds aren't taken away, because the CDE and the federal government has been very specific that if these funds are not spent, they will take them back. And I think from the federal side, they're saying, there was this districts and counties and municipalities were saying, oh, we need this COVID funds. We have a lot of unexpected expenses. And so they're really holding, people, districts and municipalities' feet to the fire, saying, you guys said you needed these funds, you need to expend them.
Perfect.
So,
okay,
so
good.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the explanation. Good job. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Wilson?
A couple more slides.
Mm-hmm.
The allowable expenses, obviously some of the allowable expenses are student learning supports, such as, like we've already discussed, Arizona State University, some online curriculum. We purchased some schools PLP online curriculum, Zoom licenses, mental health resources, such as counselors, other general measures that extend instructional time for students. Specifically for Wiseburn, this would be summer school. I don't think if we didn't have the federal funds, we were really looking at maybe not even holding summer school because the budget was looking that dire. And so we've used these funds to pay for summer school this year. Provide additional core academic supports for students. Provide integrated services that support teaching and learning. Another big one is maintaining nutrition services. Obviously, the district is offering meals to students. We're now offering breakfast and lunch, so 2 meals per day at Dana between the hours of 11:30 and 1. And then I wanted to make this announcement that beginning next Friday, November 20th, we're going to offer 6 meals on Fridays only. So that would be 2 meals for Friday, a breakfast and lunch. And then we're going to give you meals to go home. So 2 meals for Saturday and 2 meals for Sunday. And that's going to be starting on Fridays, beginning next Friday, the 20th. I'm sorry, is that the 20th next Friday? I believe so, yes.
That's correct. That's correct.
Obviously, a lot of personal protective equipment that we've purchased, masks, sneeze guards, gloves, etc. And then other miscellaneous materials to enable students for distance learning. And then I just want to give you a snapshot of where
Dave, real quick, Dave, I'm sorry to cut you off. Could you just explain the importance of the lunch and the reimbursable nature of the lunch and what that may mean to the bottom line of our budget too?
Sure. So the more lunches that we distribute, the greater the federal government and the state government reimbursements are that go into Wiseburn, go into the Fund 13 cafeteria fund coffers. So the more food that we can serve, the more meals that we can serve, the greater the reimbursement from both the Fed and the state, and that's going to help bolster our bottom line in our Fund 13, our cafeteria account.
Yeah. Thank you.
A couple questions here. These allowable expenses, I understand, are things that we can use with the funds that we have to exhaust by 12/30, correct?
Yes.
As such, maintaining nutritional service and providing food, is that not reimbursed by the federal government? Isn't that a no-cost scenario for us?
No. So right now, I think the reimbursement per meal for the feds is just over $2, and it does not pay for all of the food service expenses.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one, materials to enable students for distance learning. One thing I would love us to explore, I like this idea, but I respect the experts in the room. of headsets for students, not only for the household quiet, so you can have multiple students without competing with their computers, but also for the safety of some of our students who may be in need. So I'd encourage us to look into that. I'll defer to you on the if that's in fact a good use of those funds, but I encourage us to look at those, please.
Absolutely. And just to sort of build on what Neil said, I'm sure Dr. Harbeck is keeping track of the Wi-Fi that we're providing for students and increasing that number if needed for the students, you know, to accommodate the distance learning for students out in our community.
Yep. We just ordered more.
Good, thanks, thank you. Good.
Okay.
All right. Just in closing, so I just want to show you what we spent March of last year. I'm sorry, March of 2020 through October 31st. So just over $85,000 for personal protective equipment, supplies that help clean and sanitize our facilities. Access to school breakfast and lunch programs, just over $29,000. That's our food service workers' salary and benefits. Just over $262,000 for professional development opportunities. This specifically is for, in addition to other things, the 5 days of professional development that we offered our teachers and staff before the first day of school. Providing health, counseling, and mental services, just over $2,500. This number is expected to grow. Just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've hired an additional counselor. And so we're gonna see those expenses under that designation increase. Providing devices or connectivity for in-classroom and distance learning, just over $114,000. That's Chromebooks, hotspots, etc. Providing additional instructional materials or supports. That's the online curriculum, Zoom licenses, smart boards, etc. And then I'll just end it with extending the instructional minutes, time, or school year. This was specifically the cost for summer school for this past summer. And then moving forward, someone pointed out, we have about $362,000 in additional CRF funds that need to be spent prior to December 31st. And so again, we're going to look at reclassifying some existing expenses so that they don't take those funds away. And then after December 31st, I'm projecting about $535,000 in additional funds for these other resources. So we'll look at providing additional instructional materials or supports. You know, is there going to be a need for additional devices or connectivity? Obviously, we think we're going to have more need for PPE and supplies. You know, we're gonna look at how we can increase or improve health, counseling, and mental services, and then you know, as well, access to school and breakfast lunches.
So Dave, I have a question.
Yes.
There's been over the time of COVID, I know we've all experienced at home a limitation, you know, inability to get certain cleaning supplies and, you know, certain even alcohol at a 90% you can't get on a shelf anywhere in any store anymore. Are we having trouble as a district getting the PPE supplies at all, or are you finding it to be sufficient?
Very sufficient. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of districts, a lot of companies were struggling and scrambling to get things. Fortunately, we got a large donation from both LACO and our SELPA. They gave us a lot of PPE materials that we split with Davinci. But since I'd say midsummer, I mean, I get inundated with emails daily of, you know, companies, firms saying, hey, we have PPE material supplies if you need them. And so I think a lot of businesses have pivoted in what they're offering, and I haven't seen a shortage since. So it has not affected us, affected Wiseburn.
And just Joanne, just to add to that too, back in February, as we started seeing things kind of turning for the worse, obviously before March and the shutdown, we were positioning ourselves to have hand sanitizer, PPE, and the like on our school sites. So we actually made a pretty large purchase back. Sorry, I don't have the exact date, February or March, but we have a pretty good cache now of those supplies for our classrooms and offices and so forth.
Thank you very much. That's really, I'm happy to know that. That's really great information. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mr. Wilson, is that it?
That's it, unless there's other questions.
All right, thank you very much. Great information.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward from the Director of Psychological Services, Peggy Mazzarella.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of quick updates since I've been here. I think it's been 10 days now. So happy to be here.
And welcome. Welcome.
So I just wanted to share that we are on target as per the district timeline for opening, that as of November 3rd, as you know, in the spring, all assessments stopped and for special education. And so we've been able to begin those again in person. We have been assessing virtually since the start of the school year. We've been doing record reviews and things like that, but we have begun in-person assessments. School sites are calendaring them and getting them scheduled and holding them. So that's happening. And then we're looking at effective starting Monday the 16th. We're going to start being able to bring kids back, we hope, or at least that was, that's been part of the plan. And I'm working with individual sites and their special ed teams to look at talking about how we can bring our kids, some of our students back for the specialized services as their needs permit or as they require. So I'm working with our administration on that. Then regarding preschool, we've hired Karen Chapkani. She's back in the position of site supervisor for the preschool and the extended day program. And she came on board Monday and she's been working on licensing for the Del Air site. So we're busy over here trying to get things moving. No formal report from me.
Thank you, Peggy, very much. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward. From the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Dugal.
Good evening, everyone. Piggybacking off of both Mr. Wilson and Peggy's presentations, I want to update everyone on our in-person assessments and specialized services. So after a very collaborative process between the district and the Wiseburn Faculty Association, we developed and signed a memorandum of understanding for both the in-person assessments and specialized services. And we were only permitted to provide these services after a thorough application process and a safety review by the Los Angeles Department of Public Health. So as Peggy mentioned, we started in-person assessments last week, and we will begin to provide in-person services for students with special needs, which include special education students, English language learners, at-promise youth, and others who may not have adequate access to distance learning curriculum. And that should begin in the coming weeks. So this is actually a very exciting step forward toward in-person learning when possible, and most importantly, when it's safe. So we could not have achieved this without the development of an all-encompassing health and safety plan, which draws on the expert advice from both LADPH, as well as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And we want to make sure we maintain the health and safety standards for our students, our staff, our families, and obviously our community at large. I want to first thank our administrators and site level staff in preparing and ensuring our campuses were ready for the walkthroughs with the Department of Public Health. I'm proud to say that all 5 of our sites had a thorough visit and passed. And this visit included a review of our exposure management plan. They came and observed both the indoor and outdoor assessment and learning areas and reviewed our safety plan. So as the COVID compliance officer, I was a part of these visits and appreciate the work that our principals and their teams put in providing a safe environment for our students and staff. Secondly, I also want to thank WFA for their support for the TK-2 waiver, and we will continue to collaborate on how to safely bring students back on campus beyond just the specialized services. To the community, as we adjust to this new normal, we want to remain vigilant in prioritizing the safety of all of our stakeholders as they come back to campus. And I want to personally thank the Wiseman Faculty Association, CSCA, and the district staff for their commitment to these measures so that we can continue fulfilling our mission of both engaging, empowering, and elevating our students' educational experience. So just a brief update in regards to our MOUs.
Thank you, Dr. Dugal.
I just want to say thank you to Nisha and to the principals and all the staff involved with safety inspections and so on. It's really a tribute to everyone's hard work that the plan and the execution of the plan met the standards, and the health department didn't have any findings in our district. It's It's remarkable, and congratulations. Really good job. Thank you.
All right, moving forward from the superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
Mr. Moore, I think you may have skipped one person first.
Yes,
Dr.
let's
Harbeck.
backtrack from the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Dr. Harbeck, I seem to have skipped you twice today.
That's okay. I know I missed the pledge. Good evening. I have 3 points tonight. I'd like to talk to you about a smart board pilot, a tech pilot we have started, our preliminary response to our most recent family surveys, and the development of a potential promotional video for Wiseburn. So over the past month, we have been looking at technology that would further support our teaching staff with distance learning. We chose to investigate several types of smart boards as educational collaborative tools that can be used not only for distance learning, but for hybrid and in-person instruction in an effort to extend the use of this product well past this pandemic. Presently, we have volunteer teachers at each of our 4 campuses piloting smart boards, and our IT team continues to work with each of our pilot teachers to support, evaluate, and monitor use. Over the next few weeks, we plan to gather enough information to make a recommendation regarding the use and purchase of this technology. So more on that later. Last Friday, we sent a short survey to our families regarding their interest in returning their students to in-person learning at our school sites. We have received just over 1,400 responses since Friday, with a 69% of the responding that they would like to have their students return to in-person learning should schools reopen. We understand the return of students to on-campus learning would be dependent on a variety of issues, including the type of school schedule we could offer, but results from this survey provide information we need to better understand family interest in returning to on-campus learning. Finally, with all student enrollment now online and limited access to campuses, we are in the process of developing a promotional video for the district to be used as part of our virtual school tours for incoming and interested families. The video will be about 3 to 4 minutes long, and we'll use the Wiseburn pillars as a framework. We will be interviewing some volunteer parents and students next week as part of the video preparation, and we'll highlight each of our 4 schools, as well as our students' successful progression into the Davinci high schools. We hope to have the video ready for school tours beginning in January. And I just want to thank Alicia Galindo and Erica Corder, who are working on this project with me. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. That's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harbeck.
Question, just a quick follow-up. Dr. Harbeck, just wanted to confirm the survey that was done was really an initial survey, more of a pulse check for the community to see engage interest of returning or not back to school. And it was also a requirement for the submission of the TK2 waiver, correct?
That is correct. We had to take the temperature of our parents, find out where they stood on this, and it does help inform our planning as we move forward.
Okay, and as we move forward with the planning, there'll be a more in-depth survey that has more of the parameters and what school would look like, so that parents could really gauge, and make a more informed decision of what it would look like should school resume.
Yes, thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Roger, just to kind of expand on that a little bit. They are seeing local districts that did similar temperature checks and either have reopened or looking to, or seeing about a 10 to 12 or 10 to 15%, I guess, change in it actually lower. So the number of students that say they will come, or parents, I'm sorry, that say their students will come back to school, it actually is ending up being about 10 to 12% lower than that. So we do expect some fluctuation when we send a more detailed survey out and actually open the doors for students. So they're seeing that across the county and the state.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, back to the superintendent, Dr. Silvers.
All right, I have quite a bit to share today, so and a couple of presentations. So I'm going to start just with some updates. Mr. Mora and board, as you recall, in late September, we did submit our learning continuity and attendance plan, referred to as the LCP, not to be confused with the LCAP. But that went to the Los Angeles County Office of Education. It describes specific activities that Wiseburn is taking to support students, teachers, and our families and community during this time of distance learning. We did receive a letter from the Los Angeles County Office of Education. It was sent to Mr. Mora. It noted the exceptional efforts of the Wiseburn Unified School District staff in creating this plan. And although it wasn't required, we as Wiseburn did choose to review the areas that were noted by LACO, and we wanted to provide some additional details that supported their recommendations, particularly detail regarding support for our low-income students. It's important to note that the LCP for Wiseburn identifies a coherent school-wide approach to increased access to the statewide priorities for our low-income students. Similar to our schools with Title I programs, some services to unduplicated students are provided on a school-wide basis. With the school-wide approach, all students are served. No student population is singled out based on their unduplicated status. Very important that we take a holistic approach. Still, it is our intent to add detail to these areas on how we address the needs of our low-income students, particularly how the monies that we receive will help support these students. Any questions on that? I'm going to move on to a few things. I have kind of a plethora of different items. So if there's no more questions on that, I'll move on. Any clarification?
Goes to Dr. Harbeck for leading that effort. That was an impressive document.
Oh, thank you.
I also want to echo the sentiments of Nelson, which was to thank, I want to thank Nelson and Israel for both being a part of the Recreation Committee as we brought together some of our leaders from AYSO, from Little League, both aviation and Wiseburn Little League, as well as our Davinci schools, looking at softball and baseball and the baseball programs, just so we can get an idea of needs. Sort of a needs assessment, I would say. It was an overview where we could take a look. We actually looked at overhead views of our campuses, our sites, our fields, and just had I thought it was a very productive and collaborative conversation. I wanted to thank Israel and Nelson and also everybody from AYSO and the baseball programs and softball programs that were there. I also want to actually ask that at the next board meeting on 12/10, it's December 10th, that we agendize the renaming of the 138th Street School on two accounts. One is agendize it as a discussion item for the board in terms of some direction moving forward as to the values of the district and how this may play out in the renaming of the school. And at that time, at that meeting, I'll include a proposed timeline for the process that will get us from January 1 to hopefully a name by March, mid-March, something around that time. But definitely feel that it would be important to agendize that as a discussion item. I think it would be interesting to the community as well. So just wanted to share that. I want to also share an update on the futsal pitch. We are moving forward with the futsal pitch at Dana Middle School, and I believe November 16th, we will get the materials delivered by truck and stored, and hopefully just a week and a half or so after that, we may have an erected futsal mini pitch on the Dana Middle School campus. To date, I believe the rims have been removed on 4 of the basketball courts, and we're looking at the removal of the steel poles that the foundation will be supporting here in the next week or so as well. So they'll be cutting those poles and then filling in with concrete and all of those things you need to do, I guess, to keep it safe and then lay the pitch. So looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to meet and greet activity. Obviously during this time of recruitment, generally we have on-site visits. We go to communities and we're able to have these town hall meet and greets where we share PowerPoints and information about the district. And we do several of these a year. Well, obviously in the time of COVID, we have to be a little bit more strategic and creative in how we get our information out. And so I do want to thank Alicia Galindo as well and Eileen and the team for putting together a plan for us to be able to do this virtually and have a chance to share with the community and with other interested parties, the great things that are happening in Wiseburn and be able to continue our recruitment, continue our strong enrollment that we saw this year despite the pandemic. So lots of thanks to that. And that is we have that event scheduled for the 17th of November at 6 p.m. So unfortunately, if the WEF board members are still on, I know there's a WEF executive board meeting at 6:45, so we'll see if try and make it to both, but it may be difficult with the meet and greet. So I know there's a WEF board meeting that night as well. And with that, I will turn over to a couple presentations. I wanted to get kind of the housekeeping out of the way first, and then I'll go over to a couple presentations. So just before I pull them up, I did separate this into, one is an update for the board. You'll probably see it'll look familiar. It's pretty much the same presentation I gave last meeting, but with some updates. We'll see. I actually intentionally left some strikeouts on this presentation so that we could see kind of the evolution of where we are today in terms of the waiver process for the TK-2. So I'm going to start with that presentation and then lead into how we'll make it safe for students to come back to school. And before I do that, though, I do want to say we have 2 completed waivers sitting here for both Anza and Cabrillo, signed, not sealed and delivered yet, but they are completed and ready to go. So just wanted to share that. And that's fresh off the press as of about 4 p.m. today. All right. So here we're going to just provide an overview and a recommendation for the submission again of the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health in-person instruction for students grades TK-12. We're going to review some of the current circumstances here, and this is a slide that we've probably become used to. It is updated as of 11/10. So just to note here are the metrics we're looking at again. We have a 7.6 adjusted case rate per 100,000 students. Again, that's as of Tuesday.
Can you make the slides bigger, Blake?
Sure, I think I can. Let me. Is that doing anything?
No.
Oh, made my. Sorry. Let me try again. I'm gonna just restart. How about that? Let me try and. Is that any better or not? Is that any better?
I think so.
Are you, yes, we can try, give it a shot? Okay.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Okay, and I know this is crowded, this slide's crowded, but we just like it because we're able to capture, you know, a lot of data in one place. So we see here, obviously, Los Angeles County is still in the purple. And we've seen this trending for several weeks. I mean, pretty much since the blueprint has been released, which we've seen consecutive weeks of the purple tier. The purple tier, again, being the highest tier. If you look to the right here, it's the widespread tier of community transmission of COVID-19. Again, back to my earlier comment, the numbers we're looking at, most importantly at this point, is the 7.6 adjusted case rate. We have to be below 7 new cases. We're at 7.6. I do believe it was 7.5 last week, so we've gone up just a tick. The week before that, we were at 8.0. But the latest projections from the County Department of Health is that we are going to see an uptick again next week. So, you know, not real good information there. And again, it's just hypothetical at this point, but definitely seeing trending in the wrong direction. Our positivity rate still does remain relatively low, and we do meet the criteria as it needs to be below 8% to get out of the purple. So again, just wanted to review kind of our current circumstances as we move into the discussion on bringing students back to school. And looking at our timeline, so I do want to say, and I think Nisha shared this, and maybe Peggy did a little bit as well, but we have met each of our deadlines. We presented this about a month ago or so to the board, and we had November 2nd as the start of our in-person special education IEP assessments. That did go on. We actually have pictures in future presentation here, a presentation I'm going to show in a bit, that has students actually being assessed on campus. So we're very happy to say we have seen our first students on campus, and the primary goal has been to complete these special education assessments. We have prioritized some of our high needs IEPs, initials, triennials, and those transition IEPs that couldn't be done virtually. November 16th, just coming up, our special education preschool cohort will begin, again, a slow roll there for our ages 3 through 5. We do know that there's plans to have families come in individually and meet with the teacher. These students have never met their teacher, really have never been to school in some cases. And we want to have a plan to ease these students into this in-person experience. So we'll be scheduling that with the families. And then I crossed this out or struck this language out here because the board did ask if we could speed up the process of bringing students back. So we have been in conversation with our cabinet and with our executive team, our administrators at the school sites, and do agree with the board's recommendation and direction that we bring all of our cohorts back by November 30th. And it doesn't mean that we'll have TK through 8 students on November 30th, but it means that sort of opens the door, if you will, to beginning to provide those specialized services for special education and our EL students across our entire district, TK to 8, obviously including preschool there. So those services will also be scheduled with families. And again, this could be students with IEPs, ELL students, and again, those students that are deemed at promise that may just need some support as we move forward through this virtual learning and or any type of hybrid model. All right, and so then going over the waiver process in general, as we take a look at the waiver process, and I shared this slide last board meeting, but I just want to review again what the process is to receive a waiver from the state, or from the county, sorry. First, the district and the school need to have a complete waiver application. Again, I have that in these red folders here for both Anza and Cabrillo because it is only TK to 2, our 2 schools that offer those grade level spans. The LA County Department of Health will confirm that these applications are completed. And so that is a full vetting of these applications to be sure that we've met the criteria for a complete application before they pass it on to the Board of Supervisors, who then meet and consider at the local level those applications. Those are then either selected to move on to the Department of Health, the State Department of Health, California, or they consider and then approve, hopefully approve those applications. And then we're notified, the district would be notified by those, by LA County Department of Public Health. And just to note, right-hand corner, we do have, we're in the 2nd supervisorial district. Here's the map. So we're in here with Culver City and Mar Vista, Inglewood, Lawndale, Hawthorne. So all of our neighbors sort of to the north, northeast, et cetera. We are, which is why you'll see other school districts maybe to the west are just moving at a different clip just because of the district that they're in and so forth. So just wanted to share where we are in that.
Like as you go through this, I've got a few questions here.
Sure.
So we have 2 applications, one for Anza, one for Cabrillo.
Yes.
My understanding of the process is that each school site needs to be approved in order to have TK or to have classes in session. So there is or on site. There is a scenario where, say, Anza could be approved, but not Cabrillo, right? They're independent applications, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So it's by school site, and the district does not, can't apply on behalf of all of its schools. You submit each site independently. And so should a school, for instance, have a lower socioeconomic, say lower, maybe a higher UPP population, I should say, higher free and reduced lunch counts, things like that, it may actually be that an ANZA could receive a waiver and Cabrillo not, or vice versa. So we'll go through that process. Yes, that's correct.
So then my follow-up question is that the district has an ability to have intra-district assignments. I'm sorry, intra-school site assignments. Should, say, ANZA not be approved, could we have all the students at Cabrillo?
Yes, could we physically do that? Yes. Do I think it will get to that point? Probably not. I'm pretty confident that both our schools will get granted the waiver. Again, I'm just basing it on local school districts that have applied for the waiver, and in conversations with the county, I do believe that both our schools will receive the waiver. So yes, in the event though that that one got it and one didn't, we could do an it would be a really tough process. And I know that the county doesn't want to put that burden on schools. So chances are that won't happen, Roger, but certainly we would have to troubleshoot if it did.
So do we have an idea of how many others, and maybe this is a part of the presentation, forgive me if I'm jumping ahead, but do we have an idea of how many schools we're competing with, meaning as they submit their applications? Because my understanding is that when it goes to the Board of Supervisors, there's 5 supervisorial districts. The goal is to accept 50 actually per week, but 10 per supervisorial district.
Right.
So there could be quite a, I guess, a waiting period here, and I'm not sure what the metric is or the competition basis. How many school districts are going to be submitting roughly? Do we? And you may not know this, but how many are we competing with? What's the likelihood of the approval?
So we would know that they would make it public as on Monday. We would know how many districts have in our district have applied, and so we would know a little bit more about who we're kind of, I guess, I don't want to say up against, but who we're being weighted against, right?
But it is a published list, so that we would know like who has applied and who's under consideration.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And you're right. And actually, that number of 50 is a new number. It was 30, and it changed to 50. So you know, they do get 10 at this point, which is more. So there is this push to get kids back to school. We are seeing these numbers going up in terms of allowing schools to get the waivers.
Yeah, and I'm trying to just get an assessment of like how many applications on the likelihood, as we mentioned earlier, that we're submitting to have the option of returning back to school. That decision hasn't been made as well, but there's an avenue for a waiver. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Sure. And just so some next steps for Wiseburn that we, and I just wanted to, and again, there's some crossouts here on purpose, just so that the board kind of sees some changes, and I underlined some areas. So first, union consultation. It was important that we took that step of consulting with our teachers union, WFA, and our classified union. In fact, we wanted to make this a collaborative approach where we went into this coming back to school and bringing students back in a safe manner. We felt it had to be a team effort. And so collaboration with our unions was very, very important to us. And I'm just really happy to report that as of this afternoon, Wiseburn did receive letters of support from both WFA and expecting CSEA's letter of support as well later today, if not tomorrow morning too. So we can move forward with the waiver, submit these waivers with full support from our unions. It's a really important aspect of this. Then parent, caregiver, and community consultation. We did send out the survey, received survey results. I have attended PTA meetings. Next week, I was planning on reporting to WEF, although we may have a conflict, but nonetheless, we are finding ways to get out and share this information with the community. I do plan on December 2nd holding a town hall meeting where the entire community could come in and ask questions, not only about safety, but about anything related to the waiver and to how we could help ensure that students are coming back to school in a safe manner and getting having access to the curriculum on site. The third piece is reopening protocols for our K-12 schools checklist completion. This we have done, and again, as Nisha shared, this was the document basically that the Department of Health came out and looked to make sure that you have addressed all of these checklists or these points on the checklist. And we have reviewed, completed this document, and received the go-ahead and the check on that. So that's in our application as well. The waiver application itself is just a couple pages. I did initially recommend that submission of the final application be done no later than November 20th, 2020, although it could be done sooner should the board want us to submit this sooner. And then safety protocols. We wanted to ensure and needed to ensure that all sites are ready and that stakeholders were aware of those safety protocols. So there was a piece of it that was, yes, we achieved these safety protocols. So number 3 here, this is a really in-depth 19-page safety protocol checklist, but then it's that we're ensuring that our sites are ready with those protocols and that the stakeholders understand what we're doing to protect them. And that's our teaching force, our classified employees, our families, and obviously our students, that people feel very confident and comfortable in our safety protocols. And so again, I'll reiterate that we did get the inspections for all 5 of our sites to include our Success Learning Center, and there were no recommendations from the LA County Department of Public Health. And that's a real big thank you to Nisha for helping support the principals for all the work they put in to ensuring that happened. I know there were a lot of walkthroughs and binders being created and so forth, just so that we could meet these metrics, this visit. And then some notes to consider is the process it was initially estimated about 2 to 3 weeks for review. I did have on the last slide probably longer. However, we are thinking it's actually going to be 2 to 3 weeks, if not shorter. So very confident that within the next couple weeks, we would receive the waiver for both school sites. Again, really believe that's going to happen just in conversations with the county. Projected scenario, again, taking out best case scenario, I think the projected scenario is that we will have an early December approval. So whether it be early to mid-December, I guess, approval within the first couple of weeks of December. And just to reiterate the fact that that approval allows flexibility to return. It doesn't say we must return. It doesn't give a time by which we have to return. It allows us flexibility to return and to plan the return of our students. And just so wanted to give sort of an overview, and this is a new slide, of some of the stakeholder consultation that's gone on or will go on. First, we did have a full WUSD teacher town hall, and that was November 13th. I believe we had about 120 people at the max on that call, where teachers, it was a two-hour town hall where teachers were able to see the safety protocols. I'll share here in a minute and ask questions and so forth. Wiseburn Ed Foundation, my plan was, I hope Ann and Shavonda are still there to present this at the WEF meeting on November 17th. And then we're doing a parent guardian town hall December 2nd. And for that, we're going to allow parents to actually submit questions in advance. We will allow for some chat questions, but the idea would be that we get as much in front of that meeting as possible so that we could plan for it, answer the questions, because it could get to the point that we can't get to all the sort of impromptu questions, but we'll take note of those and then create an FAQ and post that on our website so that families can go in and visit that, get some frequently asked questions answered and kept up on our website. And then the Wiseman Reopening Advisory Partnership, and this will be the staff version. We have two dates set here, November 30th and December 7th. And so just to sort of give the two big themes that we want to pull out of this. One is we want to take a look at our current distance learning model, just knowing that even if there's a TK to 2 waiver, there are still, several grade levels beyond that may not be in person. And so we need to take a look at our complete distance learning package. We want to compare that to our survey results that parents submitted, and we have staff results for a staff survey as well. So we want to be able to take a look at those, be able to see what adjustment we may need to do. And what I will say, and we shared it with the board at the last meeting, is that families are looking for more of that live instruction, live, quote unquote, live instruction face-to-face with their teacher via Zoom, and or, hopefully in some cases we can actually have students on site through this waiver process. And then on November 5th, I did have a visit with the elementary PTA executive board at Cabrillo, and on November 10th, upcoming 138th Street Elementary PTA board on the 16th, and then Dana Middle School will be the last, and then that's a TBD. We just can't quite get a date on the books, but we will get that on the books here soon. And I just want to note, and again, we talk a lot about this collaboration, is that Wiseburn does continue to consult and negotiate with our unions, with WFA, with CSEA, and in a really, really important effort to collaborate for the safest opening possible for all of our stakeholders. And the voice of our classified unit and the voice of our teachers union has been very, very important as we've gone forth. So at this point, my recommendation to the board today would be that we do, now that we have completed waivers, that we do submit these waivers for TK to in-person instruction no later than November 20th. Again, I do have 3 bullet points here that I'd like to consider. One is that we continue to monitor the LA County COVID-19 statistics. Obviously, it's very important looking at the spread of virus and et cetera. That we prepare for a return of TK to 2 students in early January. And I know there's varying districts with varying sort of philosophies on when students should return. I would encourage and/or encourage a conversation with the board regarding an early January return, just with the breakup of holidays and so forth in December, and with the planning it takes to bring students back in a hybrid model and ensuring safety. Just wanted to say an early January return would probably be the most effective and efficient. And then we also want to plan for a full distance learning option for families. I know that's come up a couple times on this in this meeting, is that we will have a plan for full distance learning for families who are not comfortable with a return to school. So just want to be very clear that there will be that as well. And as we start going through our RAP committee meetings, et cetera, we'll have that posted for families as well. Just a little bit of context. COVID-19 infections, I mean, this is sort of speaking what we probably all see on the news, are spiking. We are at a point, and it's really, in looking back at other states and other counties, generally speaking, we're not bringing students back, or counties haven't brought students back on a spike. So in other words, generally you want to see the numbers going down when you start bringing more people back to a particular location indoors. And so just to be clear, we are at a spiking scenario, and that's why early January, as we start seeing numbers sort of hopefully flatten out, we'd have a little bit more data. Also, we'll be able to use the sort of the lead of our local districts to see what they're doing. Although we may be 2 or 3 weeks behind their start, we could also use data from their openings and try and learn and make it better. School breaks do make for a less seamless reentry for our students. Again, why I'm recommending the early January. And then we also have parent-teacher conferences kind of stuck there in the middle as well. So there's a lot of kind of choppy time there in November, December that just make it probably less effective to start prior to January. So that's my recommendation. Any questions on that part? I do have another presentation, but I figure maybe it's a good stopping point to ask any questions.
I do have a couple questions. If you could back up 2 slides. You had mentioned, I believe, that to the stakeholder slide. There we go. You had mentioned that getting assessments and evaluation of the current distance learning model was the first objective. And you said there was a second objective, but I may have missed it. And I kind of wondered what the agendas were here. And then secondarily, if RAP is going to kind of take all this by November 30th and meet again December 7th to put a wrap, if you will, again, how we're reopening, it doesn't seem that there's really even an option to open before January, as we wouldn't be ready. So agenda first, and then comments on the viability, even if we wanted to open earlier.
So the agenda of these meetings, is that what you're asking? Yeah. So it was 2-part. One was sharing, you were consulting about what the waiver process is, so that families were aware of the waiver process. Basically what we just went through is what it takes to get a waiver, who's eligible for a waiver, how they're prioritizing waivers, et cetera. So really going over that slideshow, the slide deck I just went over with the board, a couple other additional slides to that. And number 2 is how do we ensure safety? So basically this presentation that I'm giving today was the agenda for those 2 meetings. And I'm going to share the second part of that here coming up, which is our safety protocols and how we're going about bringing students on if we were to receive a waiver in a safe manner. And yes, to your point, Neil, it would be very difficult to bring students back prior to January.
Blake, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really informative, and I think probably offset a lot of questions that we might have already had, that we wanted to ask you. And I just have a question about you and from you and the district staff as well. Are there any particular concerns? Obviously the spiking cases, the approval that's needed from the LA County Health Department and so on. Are you, in your heart of hearts, are you comfortable with taking this waiver and moving forward with a plan for reopening in January? Because it sounds, the presentation is all moving in that direction. And so I'm guessing that, or I don't want to guess, but I'm asking, I guess, are you and our staff and you, because this presentation represents a lot of effort and it represents a lot of forward thinking for the district. I know there's still a lot of work to do. So in putting this together and in arraying all of this information ready for a waiver, are you all comfortable that we can meet the goals of safety, keeping our pillars in mind, meet the goals of safety and education in implementing the waiver?
That's a good question, Joanne. I appreciate the concern. And I think that, what I hear from that is similar to conversations we're having as a cabinet in general, which is obviously being attentive to COVID numbers and to the infection rates around us, and then ensuring that, yeah, as we do bring students back, that we're doing so and feeling confident doing so safely. And I could say, you know, obviously not with 100% assurance, because you can never be that, but I could say with very strong assurance that I believe our safety protocols are in place, and we can do so safely. And hopefully after the next kind of portion of my presentation, you know, the community and you all will also be confident as we are. I don't know if Eileen or Nisha have any other value add to that comment, but definitely I feel like we can open in January and do so safely, yes.
That was well said.
Great.
And I would say that also is assuming what we know right now with the facts that we know right now, obviously, right? And as things change, we may have another conversation on the 10th of December before, if we have to, because, you know, numbers are changing and our circumstances are changing, conditions are changing. So assuming that we are where we are, yes, I'm very confident.
And this waiver is focused on TK through 2 only. So that's the discussion we're having here. Correct. And as we read this presentation, that's the context as well that we interpret all of this information.
Correct.
Okay.
Small groups of students, you know, a small portion, hopefully keeping cohorts down to minimal numbers so that we are bringing, again, keeping into consideration how many people are on campus at one given time. And having studied, you know, we haven't had a chance to study many school districts in LA County because they haven't opened, obviously, right? But we have looked at day camps, we've looked at daycares, we've looked at other options where they're bringing groups of 10 or 12 students together and finding protocols that they've used that have been successful. So just kind of, and then we've actually leaned heavily on Orange County. So we've started to search, you know, communicated with Capistrano, Capo Union, or Capo Valley, communicated with Fullerton and Tustin. So we've been able to start gathering some data and some information from those schools, especially in Orange County, that have opened, just so that it could add to our sort of our resources, that when we get our RAP committee together, as Neil said, that we just have more information to move forward and do so with some resources.
So also you bring up a good point about childcare, and there's no mention of childcare, you know, as a discussion item in this presentation. Is that going to be covered with the RAP committee?
So childcare will be a separate, we'll have to come back with a separate presentation for that. We definitely know as we bring students back, we're going to have to roll out a childcare program. And we just hired Karen Chupkani, as was said, and literally she's been on the day. Peggy's been on 10 days. I think Karen's on day 4.
Okay.
So I will say though, we do have what would you call it? I guess we have created sort of a framework for bringing students back to our childcare program. We've sort of are handing that off to Karen, so then we could start building it back. But it will be a slow build. It's not something that again, numbers of students on campus, we have to prioritize. We want to take a look at staff and maybe being able to support our staff who have childcare issues, so they could come back and teach, you know, should that be in the cards. So definitely some things to look at there, and certainly wish I had more answers to those questions, but we'll get to those quickly.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the staff for all the work it took to put the information together that you briefed this evening, and continue to thank WFA, CSEA, and principals and everybody, because this is definitely a village putting this together, and appreciate it. Thank you.
And Blake, one more quick thing. Again, yes, thank you. Love all this outreach. I think this is great. I think this is also a unique opportunity to get input. So it's not just a push down of information, but to get information back. And I know it has to be managed because those meetings could go on for 5 hours, and obviously you don't have time for that. But I'd like us to give some thought to how we get information to us as well as from us at these sessions.
Okay, and Neil, maybe we can have that conversation too about this December 2nd date. I think it may be worth us having a call. Maybe we can sit down and figure out how to maximize that day. I think that's going to be a really good day for families to share concerns, to share, ask questions, just to learn, but also to have that voice and maybe just trying to find out the most efficient way to do that. I'd be real interested in continuing that conversation.
Is that December meeting? Because if board members want to attend in more than 2 board members, that needs to be the agendized meeting and so on too. Just give us some guidance how you want to handle that for board attendance also.
So board could attend, any number of board members can attend that. It's not limited to 2. It would just be that, you know, you're not up on a dais making decisions and or asking questions. It would be more as an observer role. As long as you're observing a district event, you know, and certainly I'm guessing a comment here and there is okay, but for the most part, it would be as an observer.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to move on to the second part. And sorry, I know there's a lot of me presenting today, but I just felt this was important as we're talking about students coming back. And so the second part of this is as we start bringing students back, both for in-person learning and for you know, in-person assessments, specialized services, et cetera, we needed to ensure that we're keeping engaged, empowered, and elevating. We're rising to the challenge of COVID. And we're preparing our sites to do so in a healthy way. So you see at the front desk here, these are pictures from the field. These are our staff members, our students, our special ed support service providers. You see so anyway, wanted to include those in here to really personalize it. And again, we've talked about this. I did add a little bit more data here. I won't spend a ton of time on this, but just again, 7.6 is our adjusted rate, keeps us in the purple. Positivity rate actually is in the orange, so it's a tier 3 metric. So we're looking good there. Really have to work over here on this this purple. But just as of this was 11/10, as of 11/10, at that time at the day when I took this when I looked this up, you know, it changes. There were 1,431 new cases in Los Angeles County for a total of right under 324,000. New total deaths at that point on that given day at that time, there were 5 new deaths, bringing it to a total of 77, and at that point, 888 hospitalizations. So just kind of painting a picture of where our county is overall, getting into the data a little bit. And then I wanted to talk about the city. I want to look at it from a city angle, and I thought this was an interesting sort of set of data here. We see basically our local districts, you know, Lenox, Inglewood, or sorry, cities, Lenox, Inglewood, Hawthorne, and then we're looking at the total number of population here in the first column. Then we're looking at the number of COVID-19 positive cases in each of the areas, and then we're looking at the percent of the population infected. So I highlighted Hawthorne here. Obviously, Wiseburn is just a portion of this. However, you know, there's such an interconnectedness to all of these areas that I felt it important to include all of these together and, you know, kind of share where we are in this. 2,145 in Hawthorne at a 2.47% infection rate. And then I drilled down to the district. And so now we're looking at actual district numbers. And so just again, grabbing districts that are closer within our kind of general area, you know, from Culver City to El Segundo to Hawthorne, Inglewood, it's Lawndale, et cetera, and then down to Wiseburn. Just note the enrollment and district size is noted as 4612 because that does include our Davinci schools. It is part of when LA County does take a look at our local data, they will look at our high school in terms of our district population. So that's why it's showing the 4612. 7 days, we've had one case. Our 7 day daily average number of cases is 1, pretty low. Our case rate is 6.6 over time. So that's the average. And if you see right down this list here, you see Hawthorne's at 9.5. You see a spike here in Lawndale at 14.2. And actually what was interesting is you see Manhattan Beach at 6.3, and I believe as of this morning, actually it was up above 8, I believe. And I could be wrong on that, but I do know we were seeing some spikes in some of the beach cities. In Hermosa and Manhattan Beach, we're starting to see some spikes. So just kind of a glimpse of what we're looking at in Wiseburn, because as we submit our waiver and when they start looking at any type of return to school, they will take into consideration what our daily average rate is. So this will be something that's taken into consideration.
Wait, can I just add one thing about the data?
Yep.
Just for the community and for board members, with the district data, that does not mean that we had one case in Wiseburn Unified of COVID last week. What it means is they took the boundaries of Wiseburn and singled out, you know, how many cases of COVID if you lived within the Wiseburn school district. So just to let the community know, we did not have a positive case of COVID within our district last week.
Sorry. So not one of our students at school or our staff members on our school site. It's just the boundary that occupies Wiseburn Unified. Thank you for clarifying that. And then we're talking about our reopening plan. I did share the RAB committee meetings that we're going to take a look here at our distance learning model, take a look at our surveys. I also wanted to share that I was really pleased to know that our 5-stage reopening plan is still in effect. And so, you know, all the way back in, gosh, June and July when we started, you know, making this work. Now, we may have to move down the list here. I mean, when you look at stages 1 and 2, maybe those don't make sense anymore. But as we created this, we did want to create a model in which we could go back and forth. So, you know, as I shared with our staff a couple of days ago, we're probably looking at a 2-cohort model, you know, a couple of days a week to start and then moving down. Again, this is just hypothetical as we start bringing people back from a logistics perspective. We can still use this 5-stage approach to bring students back. And we believe that this will reign true until we can get to right here where we're total in-person learning at the point that, you know, kind of the world reopens or our county, our county reopens again, you know, fully. And so what we're working on when we look at our safety protocols is distancing, equipment, hygiene, screening, and tracing. So I'm going to touch on a little bit of that. And when we talk about distancing, we're talking about making sure that six-foot distancing is required throughout district facilities. It's very important for staff, for students, especially when we're dealing with our younger students who may not be used to 6-foot distancing, that we keep that signage and those markings as reminders for everybody, because it is hard, you know, to remember that. Congregation is minimized. We do want to still use teleconferencing, and we still want to use virtual platforms as we can, limiting room occupancy, and then also providing some one-way path routes, et cetera. In-person gatherings of any size are discouraged. We definitely don't want to exceed, 10. That number is going up a little bit. So, we are talking, we're hearing from the county that they're going to probably push that up into the neighborhood of 15 or 16. Now, whether or not that actually happens and whether or not we would want to do that is different, but definitely we want to limit our any gatherings, large gatherings. And then equipment, that's an important part of this. Dave did share that we've purchased a big stock of personal protective equipment. It is readily available. You look to the right here, we have masks, face shields, thermometers, hand sanitizer, isolation gowns and gloves, pretty much anything that we would need in order to maintain a safe environment. And then face coverings to date have been distributed to on-site staff. So basically all of the PPE has been stocked on our site and is inventoried and tracked at the district level. And then hygiene, we're going to have signs posted, making sure that students know, as a reminder to all of us to wash hands, to practice that, to sing the happy birthday song as you're washing your hands, and make sure you do it for an extended period of time. Again, if it's not available to wash your hands, we do have hand sanitizer, either in each school site each school classroom and/or in strategic locations across the sites. And then wellness screenings will be conducted prior to entering any facility when feasible. And I say when feasible because it says prior to entering. There may be some cases where it will have to be upon entering. So just when feasible, we're going to do it outdoors. And of course, there's going to be some inclement weather and it may not be feasible. And should something cause a red flag, we would immediately, the workflow, would stop for any affirmative response, and we would have to then address that response, whether it's a fever or any type of symptom. So testing, we do and recommend, as do health officials, that if there were any symptoms or close contacts for folks that of COVID-19, any of those symptoms of COVID-19, that they would get tested. It's a recommendation, not a requirement at this point by the health officials. And we do, as part of our plan, have to have a surveillance testing plan ready to go that would surveil our staff. So generally speaking, what this would mean is if there were a perceived I don't want to say outbreak, but should there be a case where the county felt that they needed to, maybe there was a spike in the Del Air area and they wanted to just do a surveillance test of our school to see if it's still safe, they could actually mandate that we go through surveillance testing, and we have to have a plan for that, which we do. And so that was part of their review when they came in and checked. And tracing is important. I believe that we shared with the board at a previous meeting that we do have a very robust tracing protocol. Upon any laboratory confirmed case, I would take it to another level. It's really when we see a symptomatic person who we perceive may have COVID, we're actually including that in our tracing because we want to know who that person was in contact with and be able to address it that way. And that's all part of sort of infection control and containment. And then we have a team, a COVID compliance team. Nisha is the COVID compliance officer by title for the district. We also have our nurse, and then our site administrators and other district staff that would help support that. And so again, some pictures from the field. These are actually purchased plexiglass partitions. We'll have one for every desk upon return so that students will sit here behind these movable desks. The good thing about them is that, they're temporary, but we can wipe them down. They're easy enough to clean. And then again, here's like one of our entry stations with a staff member and a thermometer, use pens, clean pens, the whole deal. And we're trying to keep things clean and keep the traffic moving through. And then we're disinfecting and cleaning. And the difference there is that we know that on a regular basis, surfaces and common areas, restrooms, et cetera, need to be disinfected throughout the day. And we keep seeing this picture of the custodian who's, Ray, who's cleaning the handles on the door at ANZA. That type of practice will have to become habit. And then the cleaning occurs after students and staff leave, and that we're doing enhanced cleaning protocols on each of our school facilities, sites, classrooms. And I will show a picture of that in a minute here. We also reviewed, as per the board request, our HVAC systems. And we needed to make sure that our HVAC systems are routinely maintained. And we want to make sure that they maximize indoor and outdoor air exchange. And so what I mean by that is there is a setting where it would just basically recycle indoor air. It's a little bit more efficient on the system, but obviously when you're trying to mitigate the risk of virus spreading, it's not. And so we are able to put it on a setting that maximizes the outdoor air and the indoor air. So it brings outdoor air in and then filters out the indoor air. So it kind of like a car, in most of our cars, we have that ability as well. All filters are changed quarterly, and we've actually discussed even every 3 months. They have been upgraded to the MERV 8s. Although it's not the highest efficiency, it is the highest efficiency possible for our units. And to compensate, we are looking at aftermarket air purifiers. Still researching that, still waiting on the final sort of verdict from Kaya and from a couple other vendors that could add an additional layer, of safety there. And when at all possible, activities and meals will be moved to outdoor spaces, weather permitting, of course, and when not, we move them into larger indoor areas like a gym or multi-purpose room and staggered. And then I'm just going to show a couple pictures, and I won't talk to these words, but if you see here, classrooms will be set up as such, 6-foot spacing, if not more, between desks to maximize that distance. And then if you notice, this room is sort of sterile on purpose because number one is, you're avoiding the clutter and the porous type of products here. And you're also allowing, when the custodians come in and clean, you notice these counters are clear, the spaces are clear. It's going to be easier to come in, clean, disinfect, wipe down, and then move on to the next room. And so those enhanced cleaning protocols will definitely be more effective with these clean, clutter-free spaces. Again, from the field, we have our first students on campus here on in-person assessment. We see ANZA's main office here, plexiglass, and this is consistent in all of our school sites and our district office where we have plexiglass partitions here at the main office. We have our circular markers on the ground to show 6-foot distance. We have our temperature check and sign in that happens right around here with hand sanitizer. And then we have our basic COVID safety protocols that are listed and posted at each of our school sites and in strategic locations across our school sites. And that's Mr. Cornett there modeling next to the whiteboard. And then basically we understand that as we go through this plan to bring students back, it has to undergo extensive review. It has to undergo review from the board. It has to undergo review from our safety and risk perspective, from our maintenance team, from our business office, human resources department, educational services, and of course, special education. And we need to prioritize staff and student safety, physical distancing, infection control, communication is key. And we do have a robust communications platform set out, meaning we know what communication needs to go out to any individual somewhat impacted by either a positive test or exposure or whatever. And there is a very specific communication that would go to each of those individuals. And we have those ready to go in a bank and that can be sent out efficiently and quickly. And everything that we're doing is grounded in science at this point. And we're following, number one is the Los Angeles County Department of Health. We are well connected to experts. You know, we're on weekly calls with the Department of Health, with the County Office of Education. Lucky enough to be, you know, joined by Dr. Barbara Ferrer every week, be able to ask real pertinent questions and kind of learn together. I mean, all of us, including Dr. Ferrer, has never been through this type of pandemic and trying to bring students back to school. You know, this is it's an ongoing conversation. And it's certainly important. And just, oh, sorry. I just did want to show that picture in the field. I thought it was pretty cool. We have one of our smart boards here to the right. We have a teacher here, mask on is what we want to see. And then another assessment in progress on one of our campuses. And you see the PPE here. We have masks, we have hand sanitizer and the like that we're just able to provide for our students and our staff. And more pictures from the field, you know, face masks, face shields, you know, our cache of hand sanitizer and wipes, and Mrs. Wilberg there with 2 thumbs up at the door and we have a temperature check, and just wanted to kind of show some of our practices and open to any questions.
Blake, just to clarify, you're going to post this on our site in the near future?
Tomorrow morning.
Okay. I'd like to restrict questions as much as possible because we're on a time frame here. Is there any urgent questions, anyone? Okay, I'd like to continue with the agenda if everybody's okay.
Well done, Blake.
Yeah, well done. And I mean, very thorough job. It should build confidence on everyone's part that safety is certainly a prime concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, excellent. Very, very, very thorough and a ton of information to absorb. All right, moving on to the agenda. I've lost my place. Okay, minutes. Approved minutes for October 29th. Motion, please.
I'll motion.
So Nelson and Joanne.
I'll go ahead and second.
Any questions? Okay, Wendy.
Mr. Benalos.
I will abstain as I didn't attend that meeting.
Dr. Goldman.
Aye.
Ms. Caneda.
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. Moving on to 6.1, ratify a memorandum of understanding between Wiseburn Unified and Davinci Schools. Do you have a motion?
I'll move with a question.
Second? I will second it myself. Go ahead with your question, Neil.
So my question is this: it has a 5-year time frame, and it's my understanding that we are now more than a year into the original time frame from the majority of the charters with Davinci, and we're on a 5-year renewal of that charter. And it seems to me that this agreement should be aligned with the charter renewal, which seems to make more sense. And
I'm in total agreement with that, and we can modify this to change that to that date. Do other board members agree?
I would agree with Neil's comment.
Yeah, I would agree. And is it important that this MOU be passed tonight?
It is going in front of the Davinci board on the 19th, I believe is the date of their meeting, the 18th or 19th. I did include in this the comments from the board from the last meeting where we would have oversight. There were a couple additions the board had asked us to include. It was been embedded by Davinci and their board, and they sort of they were on board with the changes and the requests from Wiseburn. And so, you know, I mean, the short answer is no, or I guess the not really. It doesn't have to get passed. I think it would be, you know, it would extend something that is probably benign, because we did get the aquatic center. We did address some of those concerns earlier, unless there's something that I'm missing.
Okay, I have a question that I think is to follow here. I want to understand who the sublease is specifically to. So in the agreement, or in the write-up, it says that the sublease will be the DVSF, the Davinci Schools Fund. So am I to understand that Davinci Schools Fund themselves, they are going to occupy the space? That's how the agreement reads.
And no, Roger. So the idea is that they're going to rent the gym, rent facilities when their soccer field's built, etc. And the money would go into this fund. It allows flexibility for spending, and that's why they want to use this fund. So that's the idea behind this.
So they could lease a facility, Roger. They could decide if they wanted to, for instance, the Clippers or there was a basketball organization that wanted to utilize the gym for an extended period of time. They could sublease that facility, which then the money would pass through Davinci Schools Fund and or license. So depending on who the organization was and what their intent was, it would either be a lease or a license, and it would pass through DVSF instead of going through Davinci Schools. One of the requests from the board at the last meeting was that we be sure to include that athletics, that the money that's gathered from the gym and the soccer field be primarily, as the MOU states, or the FUA states, would go for athletics, sorry.
So I think then there's some different language that needs to be included, because as it reads right now, they couldn't sublease. This is the way it's written. This is a sublease directly to Davinci Schools Fund. It's for their use. It doesn't talk about sublease, the sublease, a second tier sublease for another organization. So even if we approved it tonight, they couldn't do it. That's not what the agreement says. I'm in favor of this, because I think in the FUA, I forgot which section it is, it does say that we would allow such a transaction to occur. It's just that the way the contract's written, or the MOU is written now, it doesn't allow for that.
Roger, as I'm reading the final whereas, I'm not sure it doesn't say that. Davinci now desires to assign DVSF the right to sublease or sublicense the high school facility, et cetera, et cetera.
So what is our action?
So because the Magna Carta, the FUA doesn't right now, if they any money that Davinci Schools gets from leasing the gym and or the athletics facility has to go through the Davinci Schools and their main budget, you know, their finance. This allows them to create the separate entity run by Gary Whalen, the Davinci Schools Fund, and pass that money through the fund instead. It gives them a little bit more flexibility and some more opportunity, according to Matt, to try and get funders, donations, grants, et cetera, to help complete the high school building.
I think.
When can you bring up that section, Neil? Because I think the way you read, maybe I read it differently. I understood it to be separately, but if it's already in there, I think then I think that's the intent, Neil. If it is a I'm sorry, let me restart. If this is the intent is for the authority to sublease goes directly to DVS and they can sublease to other entities, then I think that is what their request is.
Yeah.
I just didn't read it this way. The way I read it, it seemed like we were going to just sublease to DVSF and they would occupy the space, not to other entities necessarily.
My only recommendation here for consideration is that it almost seems like the Davinci board should approve this prior to us approving it.
That was going to be my comment too. Thank you, Nelson. I was curious why we are approving it before the Davinci board does. I totally agree with what you just said. That's why I asked if we need to do it tonight, because the Davinci board has not approved it yet. Why would we do it first?
Right.
Okay.
I see what you're saying. I guess it reads different to me, Neil. This says Davinci now desires us to assign to DVSF the right to sublease or sublicense. I read that as Davinci is going to allow DVSF to sublease, like they will sublease and they will occupy, not do
it can definitely be read that way, Roger. Yeah.
All right. Dr. Silvers, I think we're going to have to clarify those points.
Sure.
Have legal take a look and make sure it's crystal clear. Sure. And then we'll just have to approve it after they do. I don't think that let them know we're basically in favor of it. We just had some verbiage issues, and we'll get it next month.
We can bring it.
And I'm in agreement with it. I think that's the intent. It's just at least how I read it. And if legal comes back and clarifies it, that's the intent as Neil read it, then as far as we're good to go. I don't have an objection to it.
Okay.
So just for the record, legal did look at the facilities use agreement, the Magna Carta, and this document twice. And so after their review, they did believe this was accurate. I do see where this could potentially be misinterpreted. And if you add a word in here, I don't think it's I think that clarifies it for the board. And I certainly think I could bring that back to legal and say, we just want to make it a little bit more clear in that bottom whereas.
Okay.
I also have one more suggestion, if I may, and it's the last one, don't worry. It is on item 1, consent to assignment, top of the second page. I'm suggesting that it says such financial record shall be provided and available upon request by Wiseburn. I don't think that puts either Davinci or Wiseburn in a great position. I think it should be as available as upon request, great, but we should also add quarterly, so that it's automatic every time. We're not asking for it. They're not being annoyed that we're asking for it. It's just provided quarterly. Not to mention it would probably be valuable to them to have it quarterly too. So I'm suggesting we add the word quarterly and also available upon request.
So,
I would be even more clear and say automatically provided every quarter.
Right.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I like that too. Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Good point.
There's no power struggle there. It's just what's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So we are shelving 6.1. Any last comments?
Yeah. One last comment. In going back to the DVSF fund, I noticed not only are we trying to assign this sublease, but in there I just noticed something about DVS SF fund managing. Did you notice that? If you can go back. Managing the usage of facilities, is there going to be a cost to this? Let me see where I caught that. It was back in the area where right there. See, because DVSF is going to manage the sub-license, subleases, and will promote the Davinci's operational efficiencies. Is there a cost to this? Do we know if there's a cost to this?
My understanding, there's no cost. And if you want me to bring that back as a question, I can get that clarified.
And maybe it needs to say manage it at no cost.
At no cost.
Yeah. Certainly ask that question.
Yeah. Because we understand it to be that way right now, but at some future time, that may be important wording.
Yeah. Agreed.
And I guess the only other comment I would say is I think it was raised by Joanne or Neil. This has to be in line with the spirit of our agreement, because if I'm understanding this, if we're going to allow this organization to manage the facilities, and in this case, it seems like it looks like the aquatic center and probably the gymnasium, I would want to make sure it's aligned with the hours of use for our sports programs as a priority. So there has to be a reference here to our Magna Carta and our agreements.
So they are excluding the aquatic center.
Right, that's excluded.
That's
okay.
The boardroom and the common areas.
Okay, but it would include the gymnasium. It would include the fields, right? Is that my understanding?
Yes.
It would include parking lots.
It would.
So I think we want to make, I think we want to make sure this is in line with their Magna Carta. It's in line with, you know, that we're going to have from an educational standpoint, it's going to have our, we're going to have priority. For example, if there's conflicts with open houses or whatever, or any usage by our sports programs, I just want to make sure that somehow it's going to be in line. I think that was the point that Neil and Joanne were making.
All right. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. So 6.1 has been delayed till next meeting. Moving on to action items, 7.1, miscellaneous receipts and purchase orders. A motion, please.
I'll motion.
Thank you, Joanne.
I'll second.
Thank you, Roger. Any questions?
I just have one comment. I also want to echo Neil's comment earlier in his opening remarks. I'd like to thank Chevron for their $25,000 grant for Project Lead the Way at Dana. It's really, really appreciated. It's a wonderful program, and I wouldn't want it to go unnoticed. And Neil already had mentioned it, but I thought I'd bring it up here since it's on this item as well. So thank you. Thank you for that. And also, there were some parent donations, especially in this tough time. I'd like to thank the parents that contributed for some music instruments to our school district. I just like to say thank you. It's wonderful to see contributions like that and people investing in our school district. I really would just like to say thank you.
Okay. No other questions. Wendy, could you call the question?
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Caneda?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to action items consent, 8.1 to 8.3. Do we have a motion?
You have a motion?
Thank you, Nelson.
Second.
Thank you, Neil. Any questions? No? Wendy, could you call the question?
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye. Excuse me. Aye.
Ms. Caneda?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye. Moving on to action items personnel, 9.1 to 9.3. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
You have a second?
Thank you. Joanna Nelson, any questions?
Just clarification of 9.3.
Basically, as per my contract, the healthcare benefits, the cost of the district was far greater than what I could get if I utilized my wife's healthcare benefits. So I just basically traded out, and I'm using my wife's healthcare benefits and just not taking this benefit from the district, and thus saving about $16,000 to the district. Is that clear enough, Neil? I'm sorry.
No, that's great. So what else can Lisa provide that? Just kidding. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers. It's very appreciated.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
All right. Wendy, can you call the question?
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Caneda?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Mora?
Aye. All right, moving on to upcoming dates. Thanksgiving week will be November 23rd to the 27th. 138th Street School PTA Restaurant Night, Chipotle, Wednesday, November 18th from 4 to 8 p.m. So that's a fundraiser, 4 to 8 p.m. at Chipotle. Our next regular meeting will be Thursday, December 10th at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. closed and 7 open. And then winter break, December 21st through January 4th. Any other dates anyone wants to give us?
One quick comment, Israel, if I could request from Wendy, calendar invite on some of these upcoming meetings, that like the parent town hall and so forth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments before we adjourn to close?
Just a thank you to the Bill Denny and the team for the roofs. I'm ecstatic that the roofs are getting done at all our sites. So that's great news.
Thank you, Neil. All right, anyone else? Well, good night to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And
Mr. Mora, one thing for me, it's just me. I don't, so just so the cabinet doesn't have to sign back in, it'll just be me signing back in. So just so everybody knows.
Is 5 minutes enough, folks?
Are we going back, Blake, to the original close?
The previous link, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we need a break for sure. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye.